Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. My regular, how does it start? By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 14th day of November 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 2, a Jamil delivered by the Vishnu Dutas, text number 9 and 10, and we'll chant 9 together. Yeah. Stena, Sorapo, Mitra Drug, Brahmaha, Guru, Talpagaha, Stri Raja, chant with this mic and then come to the other. Okay. Stena Surapo Mitra Dug. Stena Surapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Stri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Stenak Sorapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Kalpata. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Stri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Stena Sorapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Sri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Go ahead, Dinard. Stena Sorapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Stri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Stena Sorapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Stri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Stena Surapo Mitra Drug.
Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha.
Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Sri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Thanks. Can you chant? Stena Surapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Sri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. Anyone else? Go ahead, go. Stena Surapo Mitra Drug. Brahmaha Guru Talpagaha. Sri Raja Pitra Gohanta. Ye Chapataki pare. That's not your first time. It's very good. Stena, one who steals. Sorapaha, a drunkard. Mitra Druk, one who turns against a friend or relative. Brahmaha, one who kills a Brahman. Guru Talpagaha. Okay. One who indulges in sex with the wife of his teacher or guru. Stri, women. Raja, king. Pitr, father. Go, of cows. Hanta, the killer. Ye, those who. Cha, also. Patakinaha, committed sinful activities. Apare, many others. All right, I'll read the translation of both verses. Translation to text 9 and 10. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a Brahmin, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king, or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. What happened? Oh, just see. Oh, okay. It's Bajari. He's making everything balanced. Text 11. Nanishkritaya uditaya brahmavadibhis tata vishuddhyat jagavan vatadibhihi yata hare nama padarudaritais taduttamo shloka gunopalambakam. By following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, sinful men do not become as purified as by chanting once the holy name of Lord Hari. Although ritualistic atonement may free one from sinful reactions, it does not awaken devotional service, unlike the chanting of the Lord's names, which reminds one of the Lord's fame, qualities, attributes, pastimes, and paraphernalia. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord has special significance that distinguishes it from the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of atonement for severe, more severe, or most severe sinful actions. There are 20 types of religious scriptures called Dharma Shastras, beginning with the Manu Samhita and Parashara Samhita. But herein it is stressed that although one may become free from the reactions of the most sinful activities by following the religious principles of these scriptures, these cannot promote a sinful man to the stage of loving service to the Lord. On the other hand, chanting the holy name of the Lord even once not only frees one immediately from the reactions of the greatest sins, but also raises one to the platform of rendering loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described as Uttama Shloka, because he is famous for his glorious activities. Thus one serves the Lord by remembering his form, his attributes, and pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this is all possible simply by chanting the Lord's holy name, because of the Lord's omnipotence. What cannot be achieved through the performance of Vedic rituals can be easily achieved through the chanting of the Lord's holy name. To chant the holy name and dance in ecstasy is so easy and sublime that one can achieve all the benefits of spiritual life simply by following this process. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declares, Padam Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtan. The Sankirtan movement we have started offers the best process for becoming purified of all sinful reactions and coming immediately to the platform of spiritual life. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, the Vishnu Dutas are giving the conclusive instructions concerning the power of the holy name to not only eradicate sinful reactions, but also to awaken one to the path of attaining the highest goal of life, which is pure love for Krishna and going back to Godhead. One may logically ask, well, why do we have all these other books, the Manu Samhita and these other Parashara Samhita, and extensive books in the Karmakanda section of the Vedas that deal with counteracting sin and enabling you to go to the heavenly planets and all these different things. And it's a logical question. And the thing is, these books, first of all, they were written thousands of years ago, and many of them before the advent of the Kali Yuga. And at that time, first of all, the Vedas are really also breathed out by the Lord. They're also coming from the Lord. That famous second line of the first verse, Tene Brahma Radaya Adikabaye, which said this word Brahma, we have to always get our long and short A's right, otherwise become confused, because this is about Brahma, but Brahma is Adikabaye here. He's not Brahma, which is the Vedic knowledge, is the Vedic vibrations. Tene Brahma. By him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who we just chanted to, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which is how the Bhagavatam actually begins. He instilled in Brahma, through his heart, the totality of the Vedic knowledge. And he became the repository. That's why he's known as Vidhi, because he knows all the instructions of the Vedas. And he passes them on to his disciple, Narada Muni, who then the cyclic session gets going. So, the previous ages, they were, of course, fortunate because look at the previous yugas, they didn't, in Treta Yuga, there was still a lot of sacrifices going on, and in Dwapara Yuga, the deity worship was very opulent. In previous age, the sacrifices, in previous age, everyone was a Brahmin, and they're meditative. So these books are important for regulating society and for meeting people where they were at, which is that many of them aspired, they're living on this earth planet, which was very nice, especially Satya Yuga, but they wanted to go to the heavenly planets. They heard about all of that, and so they had all these other books. But in this age, we are not even qualified to study the Vedas. Struja Bandhunam, as that the women and the Brahma Bandhus, those who may be born in Brahmin family but they're not really qualified, what to speak of the Shudras and the vast mass of Mlechas and Yavanas that populate this world, there's no question of studying the Yajna Veda, the Sama Veda and Rig Veda and all these Vedas. And even if you read, I have a copy of the Manu Samhita on my computer. You roll your eyes when you read that. You say, well, no way that the Hare Krishna movement can follow these things. It's practically impossible, and it can be a little bit discouraging. So Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya in this age to cut through all of that. And that's why it's very nice to see the mood of Lord Chaitanya reflected in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. The instructions of Narada Muni to Vyasadeva on writing the Srimad Bhagavatam. He basically says, all these other books you wrote, and he includes the Mahabharata, which has the Bhagavad Gita in it, but he's kind of making a point there. Nayad vachas chitta badang hare yasho jagat pavitram paganita karachit tadvangsa tirtam natohangsa sevitam shunvanti gayanti gantis. No. What's the last line of that verse? Anyway, tadvayasam tirtamashanti mananyata hangsa niramanti shikshya, that the hangsas, who are there in this analogy, are the devotees, the swan-like devotees. They never visit the contaminated area where the crows like to root around in the garbage. So he said, those words, which may be very nicely composed in terms of the English or the Sanskrit, there's plenty of Sanskrit Maya. We're always exposed to the transcendental Shastra Sanskrit, but the Sanskrit can also be used in the service of Maya. So that it may be very nicely composed with nice alliteration and everything, but it's like a pilgrimage for crows. It's like a garbage heap where crows like to hang out. That's their abode. The swans don't go there. They like to stay in the pure pools, and they root around in the lotuses, In other words, even amongst the animals or the nature, you can learn a lot. So what is he saying there? This is his first verse of instruction. And he's saying, well, all that you wrote is basically beside the point. And more than that, it can be harmful. I mean, he's saying it like that. You haven't sufficiently, not that you didn't at all, but you haven't sufficiently glorified the Lord. You didn't write anything that wholly and solely and purely glorifies Krishna and his avatars and his devotees and the process of devotional service. And so, after more instruction like that, on the other hand, there may be some literature that is completely imperfectly composed. Every verse is imperfectly composed. And yet, if it glorifies the Lord, then it's heard, sung, and chanted by swan-like devotees. So this is a stark contrast there. And the final result of his instructions is that he instructs Vyasadeva to meditate on the Lord. You're qualified to meditate on the Lord. And he'll reveal to you himself, and then you'll be able to write your final literature. And he does. Bhakti yoge namanasi samyak panite himale apashchat purasham bhunam mayam chaturapashriyam. He meditated and he saw the Supreme Lord, the full Lord, Purnam, and he saw in his side, behind him, Maya Devi. Yeyat sammohito jiva atmanam chiganapakam parotmanatena tatkitabipadyate. By that Maya, the living entities are bewildered into thinking that they are the body, that they're a product of this material energy. You see, so these and all kinds of anartas are there. That's the first one, misconceiving who you are, and other anartas, which are like the budgets in the heart. You become affected by the modes of nature. You get controlled by your senses, and you completely forget Krishna. So this is the state of everyone here. Anartopashamam sakshad bhakti yoga manhokshaje. By the process of bhakti yoga, as we learn here, beginning with the chanting of the holy name, especially in this age, all those anartas can be eliminated. Anarto upashamam sakshad bhakti yoga bhalokasya janato vidvangs. The people in this age don't know that. And therefore the wise Vyasadeva, he wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam. You see. And it goes on describing the glories of Bhagavatam. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the foundation of the Hare Krishna movement as Lord Chaitanya taught it. And that's why he said we don't need another tika or commentary. The Bhagavatam is our basis. So, what we've just witnessed, the last 2.5 chapters, we read the last chapter of the 5th canto, the first chapter of the 6th canto, which sets up the whole pastime of Ajamil, which illustrates the power of chanting the holy name. And now, the instructions of the Vishnu Dutas, where they're finally revealing to the Yamadutas the truth, that despite the fact that this Ajamil, all his life, most of his life, he was a young man and he fell down because he witnessed this, Sudra couple in the forest, as we know the story. And then he became a rogue and a rascal. He gave up his chaste wife, he didn't take care of his parents, his elderly parents, which is a huge sin. And he became a rogue and a rascal, a thief, And so then the Yamadutas, they're working on their usual program and said, well, he's definitely eligible, let's go for him. Sent down there by Yamaraj. But they were stopped. As soon as he chanted Narayana, remember the 4 syllables, the previous verse, there's Narayana, calling his son. And that wasn't the first time. He was so fond of his youngest son, he's in his 80s, and he has this young son. Doesn't say what he named the other children, maybe he did, maybe did not name them after Krishna, but the last one. And so he's always calling him, come here, sit with me, take your prasad. Well, he doesn't usually call him prasad at this point. But in other words, he was always calling out. He chanted many times, Narayan. But it was that last time that called the Vishnu Dutas. The Vishnu Dutas came because he's afraid and terrified of these Yamadutas, you can imagine. I don't know if all of you have heard the story, yeah. Later, yeah, hold it. But yesterday when you were here, those who were here for Maharaj's lecture, about 3/4 of the way through the lecture, one of our old members, he was here when I came. I used to do some programs at his home. His name is Prakash something. He was trying to get in the temple with his walker. He's very frail, you know. Do you know the story about him? He saw the Amadutas. He was, you heard this story. It's worth telling. You didn't hear yet. Did you hear this story? He was, his wife was a serious devotee, and he wasn't so serious. I remember I used to go, I mean, you know, he invited us to his home, and I would do a program there. And usually you get a little dakshin, you know, $20 or $10 something. He would always give some bananas or something like that. Okay, you know, offer to the deed. So he wasn't so serious, but he, you know, he helped the temple, gave some donations, whatever, you know, but he wasn't, I don't know if he was a believer. So he got very ill. He was in the hospital, and he was about to expire. And he saw the Amadutas. He told the story. And they were, you know, they were doing their thing. And he said, I'm a devotee of Krishna. They didn't believe him. He said, I'm a follower of Srila Prabhupada, of ISKCON. And when he said that, they disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah. He got a good lesson. Got a second chance. So he came back, he was more serious. But he was, you know, he couldn't walk so well. Now it's much more serious. He would come to the temple and, you know, in the corner, you know. But so that was, you know, confirmation if we need it. I mean, I used to work in a hospital. I can't say I saw this, but I heard about it. What they call terminal restlessness. This is, nurses see it all the time. Where people who are about to expire, they get freak out, you know, they become frightened. They say, well, the dog is trying to get me and this and that. So they think that they're hallucinating, so they give them pills. They just put them under, you know, they're all sedated. So it's real. And so this whole section here is, these chapters are meant to inspire us to chant the name, the holy name. But it's important to remember that that's just the first installment. That's not the reason why pure Vaishnavas chant the name. They know that they're doing that, but the real goal of the chanting is to attain a pure love of Krishna. And that becomes very clear with Lord Chaitanya's teachings and those of his followers. And what is the special, what we read in the purport here, what is the special quality of the holy name that distinguishes from all the other means of atonement, which can be effective up to a point in negating the sins, the sinful reactions, but they can't awaken pure love for Krishna. They can't awaken devotion to Krishna. And as we've learned at the beginning of the second chapter, near the beginning, is it the second chapter? No, the first chapter of this canto, is that it won't help you to negate the sinful reactions and still have the desire for sinful activity in your heart, which will eventually induce you to perform more sin. That's the disease. Maharaj is talking about diagnosing disease. You know, the disease is in the heart, which is a desire for sense gratification and fame and worship. You know, puja. What is that formula? Labha, puja, labha, pratishta. So these things, they're dormant in the heart. It just comes with the territory. Unless we have a means of cleaning the heart, purifying our desires, so that we don't even desire sinful activity, it becomes abominable. It's in the Bhagavad Gita, right in the second chapter. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasobhyasya padam drisha nivartate. That's the basic instruction. One can understand, oh, these vishayas, you know, they're making me, they're poison. I always point out, the word for poison is visha. The word for sense gratification is vishaya. Notice the similarity? It's right in the language. So this verse is describing how can one become firmly fixed in determination to practice devotional service. That's what it's all about. So this famous verse, which devotees can relate to because you go through that experience, when you become serious about chanting and following, your desires change. The things that you thought were so nice to do, you say, oh, this is abominable, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to eat that, I'm not going to see that, I'm not going to associate with people who are going to contaminate my consciousness. So Vishayava Nivartante, one can give them up, these Vishayas, by force. In other words, you decide, I'm not. Half of the women in this country are probably trying to lose weight. Maybe less than half. But there is a pandemic of obesity in America and most Western countries, opulent Western countries. So it's a big thing. You know, if you're so absorbed in your physical appearance and you're getting overweight, well, you want to have something. So obviously, there's two things: what you eat and what you do. If you're sitting all day and eating crackers and Doritos, you're going to get fat and stay fat. So they say, okay, I'm giving them up. I'm giving them up, you know. And because it's a big desire, I want to look svelte, you know. And you can do that for some time. But as it says in this verse, the desire remains, you know. The desire remains. And eventually you fall off the wagon and you're back where you started. It happens all the time. And with more serious things. Although I read an article that the people know these things, the scientists, they want to start a movement to categorize these processed foods, which are engineered to taste so good and have the mouthfeel and everything, that you become addicted to them. They want to categorize them as drugs. They have the same effect in the mind, you know, and so forth. I don't know if that's going to be able to do that, but the fact is they are like drugs. They are drugs. So anyway, Vishayavane Vartante Niraharasiddena, by not consuming them, this literally means by not eating them, by not eating the Doritos, you know, you can do that by force of will for some time. But the desire remains, and the implication is eventually you fail. But Rasopyasya Param Jishrana Vartate, by directly perceiving Param, which here stands in for Krishna, the Supreme, directly Param Jishrana Varta, by seeing, by directly perceiving, you can give up the taste also, the taste, which is what you need. We need vairagya. That vairagya is an essential concomitant of the element of the process of bhakti. And you define it like that. What is that verse? We should all chant together, those who know. Anyabilashita shunyam jnana karma janavratam anukurena krishnanu shilanam bhaktaruchate. So this first line is anya abilash, anya bilashita shunyam, being devoid of all other desires. Asha means not just desires, but longings, you know, really powerful desires. And he characterized them. Anyabilashunyam jnana karma anadi. Not covered, not obscured. The jnana stands in for desire for liberation. And karma desire stands in for sense gratification. You see? But not diluted, not covered, not impeded by any other desire. Okay, that's what it's not. He's defining pure devotional service, but we're the whole center of this movement. Anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. That's the phrase that defines it. Anukulyena means by favorable. Anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. But your behavior activities are all geared favorably toward Krishna, means for his pleasure. This is what pure devotion is. Or as Jiva Goswami puts it in one of his Sandarbhas, which I haven't been able to locate yet, but it probably says it's in the Sandarbhas. Bhajaniya parama purusha sukha matra sa sukhatvam. Nice formula. Bhajaniya means the worshipable parama purusha, supreme person. The worship parama purusha sukha matra, only for the happiness of that supreme person, Krishna. Swasukhatvam, taking one's happiness only in the happiness of the Supreme Person. In other words, that's all you're looking for. You see, that's pure devotion. So that's a long way, you know, from negating your sinful reactions. So here I want to just speak a little bit about motivation, because in Krishna consciousness everything depends on motivation. Your intention, your motivation. Notice that if you plan to sin, to engage in sinful activities, with the idea that I'm going to chant Narayana once, and negate it, that doesn't work. That's the worst that you'll never. That's the worst offense. Ajaimal did not plan that way. He chanted Namabhas. He didn't chant offensively because he was chanting sincerely for his son. And that's not offensive. But to plan to sin and then to chant the holy name once or twice, maybe, or even more, is a great offense. And the result will be that you can do that for a while, but you won't want to associate with devotees who are trying to, encourage you to stop your sinful activity. And eventually you'll stop chanting. Krishna is giving you the opportunity to chant. It's all coming from Krishna through his devotees. How did we chant? Because Prabhupada was inspired by Lord Chaitanya, by his spiritual master, by Rupa Goswami, to somehow give these machas a chance to engage in devotional service. It was a huge long shot. No money, no contacts, and what was the character, But Prabhupada had the faith in the order of his spiritual master, prediction of Lord Chaitanya, and even in the final, 11, 12 years, his health wasn't that great, and he just took a chance. It's like Prahlad, when he's thrown off the cliff. Prabhupada jumped off the cliff, confident that Krishna would save him, and to get on a cargo boat to go to America from Calcutta, and in 1965, at his age, and we know he had so many health problems there, But Krishna appeared to him. He said, "Don't worry, I'm taking charge of the boat." And suddenly the Atlantic was like a lake, and he went smoothly along. There's so many miracles, you can point to that Prabhupada, how it succeeded, and is succeeding. So, I wanted to share with you some of the wonderful verses that have been used to describe the holy name, and that are pertinent to this, especially to this verse, to this pastime. There's a verse about the sweetness of the holy name. I put it in a poem. Madhura madhura mekam mangalam mangalanam sakadanigamavali satpalam chitswarupam sakadabi padigitam shraddhaya heleyava bhagavadanadamatram tariyet Krishna nama. So of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of all the Vedic teachings, it's the transcendental fruit, the very form of spirit, unalloyed and absolute. When uttered even once with faith, or uttered once with none, from birth and death it truly will deliver anyone. And in the end it brings pure love for Krishna, life's true aim. So cast away all doubts and chant Shri Krishna's holy name. That's one of my favorites. And there's a few here there are whole sections, Padyavali. Anyone who has a computer can freely, for no cost, download the database, and in that database there's a book called the Padyavali, which I uploaded, which I put up there years ago. Padyavali is an anthology of verses collected by Rupa Goswami. Some are by him, most are not. It's from the Padyavali that we get the Shikshastika. The Shikshastika the verses are scattered throughout, because not all of them are about the holy name, as you know, directly. And there's a whole section there called the glories of the holy name. I'm just going to share one or two. I think you'll like them. Okay, let's see. I marked them. And also Mukunda Mala has some very nice ones. Okay, here's the first one I had. Some of you may know this. This one is by author unknown. Some of these are unknown authors. But why are they in the Padyavali? Because they're on Rupa Goswami's favorite verse list. These are his favorites. Kalyananam nidanam. You can all chant together, if you know it. Kalyananam nidanam kalimanamathanam pavanam pavananam. Pateyam yanmuksha sapadipadabada praptehe prochamanam. Vishramastanam ekam kabibadavatasam jivanam sajjananam bijam dharma dhrumasya. This is a blessing verse, so listen up. May Krishna's holy name, which is a reservoir of all transcendental happiness, the destruction of Kali Yuga sins, the most purifying of all purifying things, the saintly person's food as he quickly traverses the path to the spiritual world, the pleasure garden where the voices of the greatest saints, philosophers, and poets play, the life of the righteous and the seed of the tree of religion bring transcendental auspiciousness to you. Isn't that a nice verse? You can memorize it. All right, I have a few more. There's just a few, but they're all sweet. And then one of them at the end, it was directly pertinent to this pastime of Okay, I did that one. Now this is one we should all know. This is in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam. Apanak sangsutim goram yannam vivashogrinan tatak sadyoga mucheta yadbibeti swayam bayam. Living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. That's a real sweet one. And here's one that I taught to Bhakta Bronson. Some of you may remember who Bhakta Bronson is. He's our wonderful Balaram Prabhu when he was still a Bhakta. And he learned it. Okay, this one is from the Mukunda Mala. There's quite a few. Oh, I will this one I know by heart. Shattu Chedaikamantam Sakandam Upanishad. This is an instruction to one's tongue. You can do that, you know. Shatru Chedaika Mantram Sakandam Upanishad Bhakti Sampuja Mantram. Sangsaro Cheda Mantram Samuchita Tamasak Sanganiryana Mantram. Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram. Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram. Oh yeah. Vyasana Buddhika Sandashta Santrana Mantram. Jive Shri Krishna Mantram Japa Japa Satatam Janmasapalya Mantram. You understand the last line? Oh tongue. Constantly, a name made, a mantra, this mantra made of Krishna's names, Sri Krishna. Please constantly chant and make my life successful. So what are some of the qualities? Shatru Chedaika Mantram. It is the only mantra to conquer all your enemies. Now these are the internal enemies of the mind. You know, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsaya, lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy. These can all be conquered by chanting. Sakandam Upanishad Bhakti Sampuja, and they're worshipped by all the words of the Vedas, of the Upanishads, which are the crown jewels of the Vedas. There's a whole ashtaka which I can't get into now because it gets too long. By Rupa Goswami at the very end of his Stavamala, it's called Namashtaka. This is also a collection that he collected of verses that he'd written about the holy name. And the first one talks about how the holy name is a person. You know, with all the limbs and everything, it's Krishna. So that all of the effulgence emanating from the crown jewels of the Vedas, the Upanishads, are worshipping the tips of the toes of the holy name. That's really sweet. So then he goes on. Sarvaishwaryaika mantram, vyasana buddhika sandashta santrana mantram. So Sarvaishwaryaika mantram is the mantra that can give you all opulences. And these are the opulences of humility, of steadfastness and devotion, of pure love for Krishna. This is the opulences he's talking about, not anything material. And it protects you from the bite of your sinful reactions, from the cobra of your sinful reactions that's trying to get you. Therefore, O tongue, Jive Shri Krishna Mantam, Japa Japa Satatam. Does anyone not know what that means? Always chant and japa the holy name and make my life successful, never successful. Okay, one more. Now this is from the Ancha Leela, and I didn't, but I know what it means. There was a wonderful meeting with Haridas Thakur, the Majumdar brothers, who are the father and uncle of Raghunath Das. I seem to remember Raghunath Das was there as a young man, an adolescent, you know. And Haridas Thakur, he came, so they wanted to hear from him, and they gathered, you know, and he was glorifying the holy name. And there was also this Smarta Brahman, who they'd hired to collect taxes, I think, Gopal Chakrabarti, he was there. So Haridas Thakur was extolling the holy name, how even once chanting can give you liberation, just, you know, we have here. And this Gopal Chakrabarti was offended. You know, liberation, which is so hard to achieve, so many austerities, sacrifices. He said, that can't be true, and if it's not true, I'm going to cut off your nose. So everyone said, oh, you know, they got up and they screamed at this, get out of here, you know, they kicked him out, they fired him for offending Haridas Thakur. I was laughing. He said, don't worry about it. So he explained how it's true, and he chanted this verse. This is a Farad verse, you know this one. And he gave an explanation, and I made a little poem out of the translation and the explanation. It's exactly pertinent to what we're reading here. So it's a Farad meter. Anhak sanghadatakilang sakadudiyade fasakadadokasya tadanidivatamanajadadin jayachitagam mangalan hare nama. When the moon is invisible, now you have to go back at least 500 years, there's no electric lights, nothing like that. And when it gets dark, people generally go to sleep. You know, some people may be reading by firelight, but it's dark. It's generally dark outside. So that's the scene. You know, new moon and the sun is down. It's very dark. When the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. But that thick pall of gloom is at once swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear, and the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway, and the soul has forgotten his Lord, then the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he says Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the Son of the Name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart, may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. And that's exactly pertinent to this chapter. So, one little conclusion here, and that is motivation. Motivation is everything. Why are we doing what we're doing? In Maya, we're motivated by the urges of the senses and the unfulfilled desires, but we're also motivated by anger and fear. Fear is a big one. Like we have these four things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Or sometimes eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing. The fearing leads to defending, right? So which is the most powerful of those? Who can say?
Fear.
Fear. If you're doing any of the others, you know, you may be having sex, or you may be eating, or you may be sleeping, but if you're, some threat to your life is understood, you're sleeping, someone wakes you up, the last thing you want to do to that is sleep. And if you're eating, you're running, you know. In other words, fear is a basic constituent of material life. Bhayam, pradiyam, nivesha, it all starts. As soon as you turn your back on Krishna, get absorbed in the material world and go to life, fearing is the basic principle. So, that's what this verse certainly says. There's nothing to fear. Well, what do you mean? Old age, disease, and death? You know? The president? Former president? I mean, there's a million different things to fear. Walking down the street these days. You know, Prabhupada was asked once, I have to get the exact quote, you know, what can you say about, you know, how you know, your experience being a Acharya, Krishna Kanji says, no fear. No fear. Yeah, it's famous. What if the result of your chanting? Okay, thanks Vijay. Yeah, I didn't have that exactly right. And it's incredible. That means that you're beyond the bodily concept of life. Now we've seen that sometimes, you know. I've been at the bedside of quite a few devotees who passed away. They like me to chant, I come and chant. And you can see, and I also worked in a hospital where I saw ordinary people die. And they're just terrified. And as I say, mostly they're sedated because otherwise they'll be screaming all the time. But devotees, recently we had Rajendrananda Prabhu and Shamali, the most recent, and Madhusudan. But I just heard from Yamunapati how Shamali was completely relaxed when she left. She had, you know, cancer, and she had her friends, you know, calling her, you know, getting online, and her spiritual master was spending so much time with her. He's in Vrindavan, she's in Gainesville, but you know, geography doesn't matter these days. They have the right electronics. And so all of that, and her, you know, purity, she was just completely relaxed, and she just exhaled. And Yamuna said it was like the airplane came and took her back, you know. And Rajendrananda, he was chanting Hare Krishna. You know, he was definitely. So that's invaluable. That's so invaluable. What to speak of also transcending fear when you're living. You know, you can be a Vaikuntha platform free of anxiety. You know, when you're firmly fixed, we saw it with Srila Prabhupada. You know, he went through such difficulties, both before and after he started the movement. And he was always confident and joyful and completely, you know, sure of the path and joyful. You know, he emanated that. That's right there, Sukha Dukkha Samakrita. It's in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. The self-realized souls are transcendental. So, this section is showing us the potency of negating sinful reactions, which is a very important first step. We should want to get free from that burden. But that's not the end. Lord Chaitanya said, I don't care, birth after birth, as long as I can have unmotivated devotional service to you. Because that gives such amount of joy and fearlessness. Who cares? Let me be born again and again, as long as it's in the house of a devotee, so I can hear your, katha. So that's what we're getting from this. This is line 1 of the Shikshastika. Chetadapanamajanam, bhavamahadavagninivapanam. You're already delivered. When you start chanting and you get absorbed, then you've already on the liberated platform. And the blazing fire of material existence is extinguished. But the verse goes on. Anandam buddhivardhana means you're absorbed in love of God. That's where the bliss is. All right, I'll end here, a little over time. Any questions, comments, amendments? Okay, give Gorkesha the mic.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu, I like the point of being fearless that you mentioned. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, speak right into it.
So, we are speaking about this Ajamil remembering the name of his son, but somewhere I read or heard that Prabhupada also mentioned that while he was chanting the name of his son, he had a slight memory of his previous puja and rituals that he did for Narayan. So he also remembered slightly
the original
Krishna.
Narayan. Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's in one of the purports.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a whole background, back when he was young. So obviously he knew that Narayan was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But his intentions all the time was just calling his son. But at that critical point, so many things are going through your mind, so he's remembering that also. Yeah. That's, I think Krishna Chakravarti mentions that also in the commentary. Yeah. Anyone else, local? Vijay Krishna, you with us?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Okay, we have one more. Ashok Krishna, you want to say something?
Yes.
All right, somehow we lost.
I can wait, Prabhu, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be a few minutes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the class.
Hare Krishna.
I was thinking about when you were talking this last point about the fear. I have, initially as well, I've seen a lot of people in general worshipping under fear as well, right?
Yeah.
So how do you discern that with the unalloyed devotional service where you're the first aspect of I have to worship because something will go wrong or bad, right?
You're talking about worshiping Krishna.
Yes. Yeah. So that's an interesting...
the thing is, basically, it doesn't matter how you come, It matters what happens after you begin chanting. The chanting is opening you up. Prabhupada knew that. I mean, he's chanting out in the park. People are taking it in all their different. It's all being filtered through their mentality. But it doesn't matter. It's all auspicious. And a certain percentage of people who hear the holy name chanted purely will become intrigued. Will become interested in more. They'll take a book, take a pamphlet, come to the temple, want to learn more. And maybe not even immediately. They may take a book and then put it on the shelf. It could be years. We know this happened. Then something happens, or they come in touch again, and then they find the book, or their child finds the book, it falls down, hits them on the head. All kinds of things have happened. But the idea is that chanting the holy name is all auspicious. What we do with it in our lives will determine the result. We can just chant Namabhas the whole time, or offensively, and that's all in the account. That it will come back. We're not going to go back to Godhead or attain love of Godhead, but we get a human life, and then next life. So the idea is that if we're fortunate, we will experience something with the holy name, be attracted, and then want to open ourselves up to understand. The knowledge is all important. And once we understand what's going on, and that these are our real problems in life, And this is why I feel so nice when I'm with the devotees, and I feel so, nervous when I'm not with the devotees. Okay, let me, read the book and do a little more and chant seriously. So that's how Prabhupada started the movement. And it's very interesting why he couldn't do it in India. He couldn't really get anything going. He tried really hard for years. So he decided to go to a place where people didn't know anything about Krishna, rather to know so many things which were wrong, about Krishna. Prabhupada gives the example: if someone goes to learn the violin, for instance, and the teacher asks him, "Well, what's your background?" "Well, I'd already taught myself." Then he charges more per hour because he has to unlearn all of it. Right. If he's just fresh, he says, "Okay, I can." So that's what Prabhupada, and sure enough, he found receptive. And Krishna, I was there. I was part of that generation. I didn't join in the beginning, but I lived a block from Tompkins Square Park in 1968, which is pretty close. And I would see the devotees come marching up and down the street. But it was in the air, the idea of experimentation and opening up to the East and Indian, philosophy and everything. There was a whole bunch of nonsense going on, but a certain number of people were intrigued by, the mantra and the guru and the whole thing that was going on. And so they were able to benefit, and become serious. And it's a transformation. If you really take it seriously and work hard and chant, rounds and try to avoid those things that take your mind away from Krishna, and then you can make serious advancement and become determined in devotional service, regulated. So that's the idea.
Thank you.
Sure. Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, can you recite it again? The quote at the very end of the translation to text 9 and 10?
Okay. Just give me a second here. I had a lot of bookmarks here.
Question. Can you recite?
I'm sorry?
Maybe you could just recite it.
All right, hold on a second. I hit the wrong button. This is what I'm looking for. Okay. Oh. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So this is the end of the purport, is that what you're saying?
No, the end of the translation.
Oh, the end of the translation to the second one or first one?
Because in my book, I have text 9 and 10 without a purport.
Yes, so that's the one you want to hear.
Yes,
Yes,
I
yes,
want
yes,
to
yes,
hear
yeah.
the end of the translation, the quote.
Here goes, quote, because this, Krishna is saying, he considers, the Lord considers, Lord Vishnu, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection.
Yes, so the obvious question is, protection from what?
From his own mad mind.
From his own mad mind. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
That's what I want protection from. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
You can walk with it too. Show him how